start with a question when I'm done. All right. Welcome to Let's Talk Impact. Today, we're going to talk about data centers and the future of Southeast Texas. We're going to focus on power, profit, and pollution. Artificial intelligence is transforming our world, and with it comes a rapid expansion of data centers across Texas. These projects promise jobs, investment, and innovation, but they also raise important questions about water, electricity, tax incentives, transparency, and who truly benefits. Tonight, we're exploring what responsible growth looks like and how communities can ensure progress that serves the public interest. I want to thank our guests tonight. We have Frederick Feely with us again. We have John Beard Jr. with the Port Arthur Community Action Network. And we have Bobby Tillman. He is the Democratic nominee for SD3. We also have Danae on the comments tonight, so please feel free to chat, ask questions, make comments. She'll be keeping up with those as well. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. So we're going to just jump right in, and I'm going to start with a question. Um, John, let's start with you. What is a data center, and why are companies building so many of them right now?
Well, first of all, thank you and good evening to everyone. And first of all, a data center is nothing more than a large assembly of computer servers. Computers amass information on equipment, which is kind of like a repository for all of the information they house or they use in an app or some application in what's called a server. And when we say data centers, we're really just talking about not just a data center. We're talking about a hyperscale data center that is multiplied, as you all hear, by hundreds of thousands of square feet and huge in size, tens of times bigger than entire football fields. They hyperscale or blow these things up to put more and more servers in so that there's more and more access or more and more information they can have access to. So what you're basically assembling or seeing is like you have your computer at home or your laptop. It has capacity to keep in its memory the things that you program and put into it and to help it operate. But hyperscale data centers take all of this information from all of these sources, or as a fan of Star Trek, having watched the very first movie, one of them that they had, that they talked about Beeger or this supercomputer, this super entity, learning all there is to know. So that's what these things are doing to amass all of this information they can get. And who's that information all about? It's about you and it's about me. Everything we do that's connected into the digital world goes into these hyperscale data centers to be used by who and for what. Hope we'll explore that just a little bit later.
Thank you very much. Um, so, just in general, Bobby, I know. Why do you think Texas has become an attractive location for data center development? Oh, we can't hear you, Bobby. Check your mute.
How about now?
There we go. Gotcha.
Sorry, guys. This is new to me. I all these little buttons I got to push. Anyway, there's lots of advantages for Texas. One thing is it's massive land mass. It's got low taxes. It's business friendly. It's got low regulatory, uh, low regulations and stuff, and it's got an independent grid system. So companies they can come here and they can build quick and build fast and build large. So I mean that's why they're coming. Land is they can get it in these rural communities. They can get it cheap. Lots of people want to sell their land for double the money and get generational wealth for their children. I get that. I'm a property owner, but it's the ease of putting them here is what I think.
Um, Rural areas are probably more attractive for this type of development for that reason.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
There's less regulations out here. You don't have to go through the city, to get permits and stuff like that. You can just, I can put a data center on my property here, tomorrow, and I mean, I don't even have to get a permit for a well. I already have one.
What are some of the issues that we're all seeing right now with data centers? Well, there's been a big backlash. This seems to be one area where everybody across the political spectrum is kind of coming together on this. And we saw in Texas, Abbott invited all these data centers here, right? And gave them sales tax relief and things like that. And now we see him in this campaign saying, maybe we don't need data centers. And so I'm curious because I think maybe he's paying attention too to the backlash. And I mean, we know he held us hostage to vouchers. He'll hold us hostage to this too. But what do you think it is that has impacted people? Why are people focused on this issue regardless of their political identity?
Have you seen one?
I've seen pictures. I've seen
I,
your pictures.
well, like I said, I mean, I'm just the type of person that, I mean, especially running for office, I'm, complaining and listening to people tell me stuff. But as far as, people telling me stuff, those are just rumors and hearsay. So I'm
Mhm.
like, how can I sit there and say that that I want, a company not to make money or a landowner not to make money selling his land? How can I say that and not know what I'm talking about? So, I found the closest one that I could find was 3 hours away. It was a Friday night. I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing nothing anyway. So I got in my car and I drove to Hood County. And, so people, I'm getting backlash. Well, it's not a data center. It is a cryptocurrency, which is the same concept. It has the same cooling systems. It has the same process. It just doesn't store information and put it out like he was saying. They're not storing the information. They're just making cryptocurrency out of it. Um, it was the most absurd. I mean, I can't even describe it. I mean, and to say that I would allow it to be next to my house is an absolute no. And for me to be a state senator and say, "Oh yeah, this is great," look at all the money we're going to make. There was literally nobody on site. I mean, I drove to the doors and there was a gate there, and I could, it wasn't even locked. I could have opened the gate and went inside and did whatever I wanted to. There was literally nobody there, and it was like. It was the fan motors running, the cooling system's what it was, and it was. I mean, I don't know. I can't describe it. It was the most obscene thing you'll ever hear. And they had a big 24-foot wall that went all the way, around it and stuff, but you could still hear it. I took my car and I went and marked it a mile. I marked it 2 miles. I marked it 3 miles. I marked it 5 miles. At 3 miles, you can still feel the vibration at three
Mm.
miles. And at
Well, and
5 miles,
we're hearing that livestock is being impacted negatively by this.
that goes back to we're hearing, and I raise livestock too, and I can't say for sure because I don't have that problem, and I've never actually talked to a farmer that said it. I'm hearing it, through social media. But what I can tell you is I have a dog that 3 hours before it rains, he goes and hides in the closet somewhere.
Right.
He literally has an anxiety attack from just the rainstorm coming. And and it just, I mean, he's actually almost tore my mini blinds up. I don't know why he wants to go up. He tries to go up as high as he can. And if you're sitting on the couch, he tries to climb on your head. And so I do know that animals, because I raise cattle, and I do know that whenever before storms come in, the cows will go out there and they'll lay down. And the reason they lay down is so that they'll get a dry spot. When the rain comes, they'll have a dry spot under them and they can stay cool, and, or stay dry on their belly and stuff. So animals feel that. It's if you're a hunter and stuff, and the same thing with when you go hog hunting or you go deer hunting. There's weather just it explains how their movements are. A good hunter will know that on a certain day, because of the weather, they're going to get better hunting. So yes, it's definitely going to impact the wildlife. It's going to impact the agriculture stuff. But my biggest concern is people. What is this going to do to people?
Right.
I mean, I'm, my dad, rest his soul, he just passed away, but he has this frequency hearing like a dog down the street. He hears it, miles away, and it literally drives him crazy. And so what is this going to do to people?
That's
And
that's an interesting question in relation to veterans. Frederick, I'd like to ask you maybe to comment on this, right? I know that we often have, we see a lot of talk about veterans, right? So let's just use them as an example because I think it's a big example with different issues with PTSD, things like that. Are we setting people up for anxiety and issues and stuff with constant noise? Are we? Is that what we're creating for communities? Frederick, do you have thoughts on that? And
Yeah, you absolutely have to take that into consideration. I mean, it's veterans are end up a political football anyway,
right,
but yes, if it's going to affect the outcomes of human beings or animals, human beings can hear frequency and vibration, and you get somebody who has severe post-traumatic stress disorder. Somebody dropping a pot in the kitchen can send them off. You know, fireworks. Lord knows, come the 4th of July, you'll blow out 2 days before and 2 days after. You know, and you, there you are shaking on the corner of the couch with your dog. You know,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that stuff ought to be taken into consideration. But I think the progenitor of these data centers has come a long time ago. You know, Walmart, Amazon warehouses, stuff like that. This isn't a new business model. This is an old business model. AI sort of inherited it,
Mhm.
and dropping. I understand the fight against it, and I these are valid questions. These are important questions, but and I think the reason why people are so in tune to it right now across the political divide is because for the very first time this directly affects consumers.
Mhm.
This is right in their face. Whereas, let's take Walmart for example, who hires individuals, refuses to pay them 40 hours, and then their HR puts them on food stamps. So when you get those everyday low prices at the teller, which now is automated, you've not only paid for your item there, but you're going to pay for it in April
Mhm.
through subsidies. It's just, I think this is a great debate to have. I'm worried we've arrived too late.
I think
I'm with you on that.
yeah, I think I would agree with that too. I think one of the issues we see a lot of um, is when industry is coming into areas, there's lots of concerns about tax responsibility, community impact, all of those types of things. And I don't feel like there's been a lot of studies in this regard. I don't
My,
think many people have paid attention or even looked into what the actual impacts are.
one of my
Not
big
really.
concerns is what's the community getting out of this?
Right.
I mean, what? I mean, they're coming here and they're taking and taking, they're taking, but what are they giving?
Right.
You know, we're not getting anything for this, you know, and the transparency is absolutely zero. You know, I've been going to commissioner meetings and they're signing NDAs and or saying they're not
That.
allowed to speak about it, you know, and then the county commissioner signing. I had one county commissioner here, he signed a road use permit for a city because they couldn't get a hold of the city. The mayor wasn't available, so he signed it for them so they could tear the trees out. You know, this is just it's all behind the door back stuff, you know, and there was a bunch of stuff going on here with me. They, you know, they offered me money for the solar farm, and I said no because I didn't want to do it to my neighbor. You know, and it's generational land I've had in my family since 1880, and so I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it to my family, couldn't do it to my friends, I couldn't do it to my neighbors. Then my neighbor turned around and did it to me. You know,
Mm,
so it's 1,100 acres here, and they've just wiped it out, just clear cutted everything, and then they put the transmission lines. They leased it to actually one of our attorneys that is on the Democratic Party. He didn't know it was. It's Meta is the one purchasing the electricity from the solar farm. Where's it going to go?
yeah.
You know, why does Meta out in the middle of nowhere purchase all this electricity from? It's 436,000 solar panels, and then come to find out that this Kyle Bass lawsuit that he's suing for all the water, it's next door to it. So
Let's go back real quick because I know we need to talk about water, electricity, infrastructure, all of those things. But I want to stop real quick and talk about this NDA. We're hearing a lot about these NDAs, and we know that our elected leadership develops corporate partnerships and things like that with industry to help, especially here in Chemical Row. It does all of that to enhance. The idea is jobs and economic investment. My question is, in how is it okay for someone elected by me and you to sign an NDA with a corporate partner so that they don't then have to answer to me and you?
It's
I'm
not
really
okay.
struggling with how that's legal.
it's not
It's
okay with me. I don't, you know, yeah, somebody else can answer that. It make sense. It doesn't make any sense to me. If you're elected, it should be public information.
Right.
it,
You
it-
know,
not
that's
only
Smith.
that, not only that, because it's in the public domain, Bobby and Jen, but also you swore an oath of office to
Exactly.
serve and protect those people who elected you. They are your first priority. I don't care about Citizens United. Companies are not people. People are people.
Yeah.
And you have an
Yes.
obligation to be fully transparent and open about anything that's going to affect them, their lives, their property, and their taxes. That is the most closest thing to anyone that you have. When you affect those things, you automatically draw them into that discussion. So signing those NDAs, unless it's for something in a very initial phase of doing business, but when it becomes something where tax abatement is discussed, or tax breaks or incentives, or anything that's going to involve that city and affect those citizens, then you have an obligation to not just pump the brakes, but hit the brakes hard and say, well, wait a minute, I can't do this. Now, the cure for that is going back to something Bobby and Freddie said earlier. It's not too late, because you know why? Because we control the power of the purse, and we also control the ballot box.
Mm.
For elected officials who will not sign, if their community gets together and says you need to sign an agreement saying you will not sign any NDAs, if you sign an NDA and we find out about it, we're going to take recall proceedings against you and remove you from office. The way
I mean,
you
I really
handle
think it should
elected officials
automatically
is to
trigger a
remove them from
recall.
Oh,
office.
I do too. I do too
Yeah.
because
If you
that
sign an
NDA, that
NDA,
signature that you signed on that NDA didn't come for free.
no,
What,
we
That's right.
elected you to
That's
speak
right.
for us. If you sign an NDA so that you then don't have to do that, you should not be in that position.
what I've
That's
been
right.
seeing is they're not. You'd have to do a Freedom of Information Act, I guess, because they're actually the commission, the mayors, and all this are saying I'm not going to answer that question.
Right.
But here's
You
something
know,
you got to understand too, Bobby. It's not just about a Freedom of Information Act request, because a lot of what's done, I'm a former elected official, three-term city councilman here in Port Arthur, and mayor pro tem, and longtime observer since 1988, 90, being involved in city politics, still involved on a couple of committees even now in my retirement time, I guess you could say. And the problem with it is that as we're looking at doing through my organization, is asking for that FOI request on any and all communications with any and all prospects or business prospects that are coming into the city like that. Because there's always these informal conversations held on the side where things are
Hmm.
decided out of view and eyesight, and all the meeting is a mere formality. So we want to know telephone calls, emails, any form of communication, because we deserve to know. If you're not going to disclose it, then we're going to dig till we find it. And if we find you've got your hands in the cookie jar, then we'll initiate proceedings to remove you from office. That's what I
I
propose. And that's the way you keep them in line and keep them honest. We, the people, have to do a better job so that the thing you and Frederick talked about, is not going to happen if we feel like it's too late. It's never too late to take
oh, I
action, in
lost
my
you.
view.
yeah,
I lost you, John. Can you hear me?
I got to
Well,
reiterate on
I
that. I
lost your
don't.
mic, John, at the end there. But so I think
Okay.
sometimes, just like when these companies make these promises of jobs, that's what our elected officials tell us all the time when it comes to industry. But it's also with these NDAs, the excuse they use is trade secrets. And I don't think that we're not asking for trade secrets. We're asking for how we'll be impacted. So I think that's an important distinction. What I want to move on to now is let's talk about water. What we hear a lot of things about, what the water usage, and I know there's different kinds. There's some that require fresh water, there's other types of recycling sort of cooling systems that are available too. But we are seeing places like Corpus Christi, Texas already has a water problem. What are we potentially looking at here water wise?
A complete decimation of it all. I
I
mean,
can't
it's.
hear. Is anyone?
Can you hear me?
I seem to have lost your voices.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
I can hear you too. I can't hear her. I mean, can you hear me, Jennifer? I think
Okay, let's
Jennifer.
work out our technical difficulties real
You
quick.
good. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just on the water thing, like I said, the aquifers are already low to begin with, and if Kyle Bass gets this federal lawsuit that he's got, I mean, he's going to suck it dry. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I mean, he wants 15 billion gallons of water per year just here in Henderson County. And he has them in several counties all over the place. And the way they're talking is, oh, we got
Yeah,
plenty of
can I
water,
use
plenty of
yours?
water, plenty of water. But it's just like Corpus Christi. They were supposed to, one of their big things down there, they were supposed to be.
A little echo there.
Yeah, big echo.
Am
I'll
I
let
back
some,
on?
yeah, we can hear you. I'll let
Okay.
somebody else speak. I'm getting
Uh,
a big reverb here.
I'm not
Yeah,
hearing
I
Bobby.
mean, we're going to run out of water if everything goes the way it is, and that's just the way. I mean, that's just fact.
Come get yours. I'm
So,
gonna jump out and jump back in.
okay.
Y'all keep talking.
Or put your microphones on mute when you're not talking. That may help because somehow we're getting a feedback loop. But with regard to the water, I was doing some research on it, and I don't know what size the data centers are, but they're looking at upwards of 5 million gallons a day.
That's incredible.
Last when I was on city council, when I came off in 2012, our water production was only 20 million gallons a day, and we've lost population since then.
Wow.
So, and then you've got industrial users who also want to get water from the same source that we have to get the water from too. So there's, just like you said, Bobby, it's only so much water to go around. And we're in the midst of a drought. In spite of all the rain and all that's happened, Texas is in a drought. So when do we determine what is the more appropriate use? To
Uh,
have water for people because water is life? Or
my
are we going to allow the companies to use up all the water and then we do the best we can for people like they did them in Corpus? We
well,
don't need to
my
get in that situation. That's why you have to have disclosure and transparency and no NDAs so you'll know exactly what you're getting into.
my plan is to reform. I want to reform the rule of capture. I mean, that's my number one thing. That's what I got into to begin with. I've been talking to a guy, a professor at Rice University. His name is Gabriel Collins. He has several papers out that he's written or whatever. Several states have already gone through this. They've already changed it. And we have to put human beings and life first. And one of my policies is I want to change water from a natural resource to a life sustaining resource, and that way it can be 100% regulated from the day one. The only issue, it has to be a constitutional amendment, but it just takes 2/3 of the House to change it, and then we have the citizens vote and let the citizens decide whether we want water or we want companies to have water. This is our time to stand up. It's our time to do it. And this is our right. You know, these billionaires and millionaires, they don't give a crap about us. They don't give a crap about the water. They can use it all. And then they'll drink bottled water from somewhere else. They don't care. I don't know what their plan is. You know, I mean, I can't understand what they're doing with this water, but we have to protect it. The state legislator, the Constitution gives a state legislator 100% control of this. And the
Hmm.
people, the representatives in office have done nothing with it. Article 16, Section 59 gives us the right to conserve natural resources, and nobody's done anything about it. They're selling the water like a commodity, like it's oil or gas, and they're making millions and millions of dollars on it. And this has got to stop. I mean, it's not going to be replaced. We only get one. We get one shot at this, and that's it.
And that's the bottom line, really. That's where the wealth. I had written something on Facebook earlier today that 60% of Americans have no impact on our economy. Jeff Bezos himself has advocated for no longer charging the lowest 50% of our country taxes, no having them pay no federal taxes, which to the ear sounds great. You know, hey, I don't have to pay federal taxes, but we formed our country over taxation without representation. So if they're no longer paying taxes, then they no longer have representation,
That's
meaning
right.
they no longer matter. But going back to the water consumption, the VA, the Veterans Affairs, the head of the has a data center all their own, but they purposefully sunk it in water to keep their
Oh,
processes cool. Now, it's not a zero sum game here. These things are not the great evil.
right.
But there has to, like so much in the U.S., like every industry, there has to be a check and balance system. You have to be willing to regulate it.
Hmm.
And I know here in Texas, we hate that big R word. But for God's sake, when it's whether or not your child, you have enough water to make their baby formula is a real concern and ought
Well,
to be a real concern.
We need to classify data centers in their own category so they don't use any loopholes, to go through something else. We need to these hyperscale data centers and all that need to be grouped together, and they need to be strictly regulated with consumption of water, electricity, and even buffer zones. I mean, I'm this is hitting. I mean, I was already upset, about what's going on, and then this is going to, a half a mile from my house. This is a pretty big deal for that our people are going through. Then when I went and saw what's going on in Hood County, and there's several lawsuits, going through, and it's been a big write up in papers and all across the country. It is obnoxious what they're doing, and there's no regulations whatsoever out in these communities. In these
No, and
rural areas, there's nothing.
well, Bobby,
You know,
look at what's going
Frederick,
on in Oklahoma with this fracking. You have non-fault lying communities rocking and rolling with four on the Richter scale tremblers, only to have muck and fuel and coming out of the pipes. It's interesting because these data centers, speaking of natural resources, has caught the attention of one Erin Brockovich,
mhm.
and she's on it like stank on you know what. So I mean,
Well, I think when we were talking about water and energy, we spoke last time in our podcast about public utilities being treated as commodities. If we're not regulating business, then we are making significant sacrifice on their behalf. And so I think we have to reframe regulations. We've been taught regulations are some big evil against corporations, and they're not. They save us because corporations are not,
Why,
benevolent. They're
why,
profit
why,
driven.
why do we have a government if the government ain't going to help the people?
That's it.
Exactly.
We've
Exactly.
moved, we've shifted from government being focused on people to government being focused on profit.
It's
And
big
that's why
business.
with the stock market, they can say it's booming all day long, but your groceries are still expensive. It's a separate economy. It's not in our working economy. And
You got the rich people against the normal people, and the trying to make a living and working every day and trying to just get by, living paycheck to paycheck. And then you got the rich billionaires that don't give a crap and they want more money, more money, more money. And it's the government is involved with it too. They're bringing all these companies in Texas because it is easy to bring it here.
mhm.
It's less regulations, less this, less that. The EPA, they cut a bunch of rollbacks back where they can get the stuff. And a lot of these data centers, from what I understand, are using the dry cleaner, bypass to get the permits for the air pollution. And it has to be regulated. I'm sorry. I'm
Right.
less government. I'm running for candidacy for the Senate, and I'm less government. I want less government, and I want freedom of property rights and all that stuff. But like I said, if you're going to have a government, you got to do something. You got
Bobby,
to
I
be
wouldn't
here.
go so far as to say less government, but no
Well,
more. Not want to say more government, but we
that's
need
what I'm
the
saying.
right
I'm more
size of
about.
government to
I'm more about
enable people to
people.
be protected, so that local people have a say in the matter. The people that
That's
talk
what I'm.
about.
That's
Go ahead.
You're exactly right. That's what I'm just saying. I don't want the government to come in here and just be a dictatorship and just take over and take control of everything. What I'm saying is if you're going to have a government, the government should be here. We elect them to work and for help us and make our lives prosper, not to make corporations make billions of dollars and us go without.
And
Right.
That's
that's the shift we've experienced. Our government has shifted from ensuring the rights of the individual and the people of this country to ensuring profit driven growth for corporations. And Citizens United was the nail in the coffin for that. And
there's a
that's what we're all
reason.
experiencing now. So let's talk a little bit. We talked about water. We know Texas is struggling with water. And we know that this has been the water is a longstanding problem too. I remember years ago talking about Nestle buying water rights, right? We've always had an issue with corporate power versus individual rights. It's in
It's
conflict
it's
right
the rule
now.
of capture. You got the rule of capture that was established, generations ago, and I can go out there and I have a well already. I can suck all the water out of it I want, and there's nothing anybody can do.
Right.
That's just wrong.
Right. Well,
so
okay, so
back
to
in the
that end,
day,
let's talk about go ahead, Brandon.
back in the day, Ted Poe was the one that kept Houston from taking Beaumont's water. Ted Poe for, but when you had Ted Poe on Congress talking about AI, or no, he had the head of Google and was at, like, you could tell Ted Poe didn't understand technology.
Right.
And so you have that, one of the influences too is you have people who can't conceptualize the technology that is being rolled out as fast as it is, that just don't understand.
Yeah, I think that's true of a lot of our leadership, right? We're getting familiar with this because we're reading about it, we're reaching into it, we're trying to figure out what's going on. And I find with leadership, a lot of the times they don't have any clue. It's just rubber stamp, rubber stamp, rubber stamp because of all these promises. Um, and so I think it's a it's a problem that our we work to inform our communities and get our communities to be informed, but we have a real issue with elected leadership not being informed on these issues and not knowing what to ask.
There's a reason that I'm just a cattle rancher running for office. It's
Right.
because I'm not being represented by anybody. So, I mean, that's exactly what I mean. I'm retired. I'm retired. I live a great life. I don't have to do this, and I just can't sit by and take it anymore. None of us, none of any, no, none of us on this podcast are being represented by our officials. Period.
Yeah. We're not. We're not. And but we're lucky. I think this election in particular, right, has a lot of that. A lot of people who have lived their lives. They're regular people. They're working class. They're moms. They're ranchers. They're dads. They're teachers. They're all these things, and they have experienced how these policies and these positions have impacted our daily lives. So when they go and speak, like you, Bobby, you know the reality because you're living it. And I think that's a plus for us, for people this election, is you have options of people who actually know what you're going through. Because what we experience a lot with elected leaderships is their circles are the corporate partners, donors, other elected officials. They're fairly removed from the day to day impact of life like the rest of us. They have
I'm
no
no
clue what we're going through.
I'm no different than anybody in my district. I've had all the money I've ever needed, and I've had to go pawn stuff to get my son a trumpet for middle school. I mean, I understand what's going on. I've lived a life with no, not being able to afford health insurance. I live a life, living paycheck to paycheck or borrowing money here, and then I've lived a life where I'm completely comfortable. I understand the struggles that we're going through, and the elected officials, especially in Senate District 3, we're getting the short end of the stick. I mean, this is a unique district. All the way, all y'all's counties that y'all are representing here. I mean, you're not being represented by the state leaders. I'm sorry, you're just not.
We're not. We're not. We are absolutely not. Okay, so let's move to um, what are the economic benefits that these projects bring, right? Because none of us are saying no technology, none of us are saying no progress, none of us are saying any of that. What is it that we anticipate these are going to, what is the economic benefit, or how are they going to help communities? What's going to happen? What are they for?
I,
Is there any benefit?
somebody else want to go first because I could sit here and talk on this for an hour. Guys,
Go ahead, Bobby.
I haven't seen any benefits whatsoever other than for corporations. I mean, it's going for corporations. It's for them to save our data and just when you open up your phone and all of a sudden you were talking to your friend and now all of a sudden you're talking about Home Depot and you open your phone, there's a Home Depot ad. That's what it's for. Is to get
Yeah.
in there and it's to store your information.
Right.
And then these flock cameras. I'm watching these videos on flock cameras. They're pulling over people and arresting them because they got the wrong license plate number and all this stuff. They're tracking us down. They're treating us like non-humans. They're treating us like a commodity ourselves, and it's unbelievable what's going on. I mean,
But
they don't even have jobs. Yes, now I have friends that make money on these data centers because one of my friends he leases construction equipment. He's ecstatic. Their company couldn't be any busier. And they're going to bring into towns. They bring in these RV parks. They fill up the RV parks. But what that does, it raises the rent on all the apartments and all the houses around there. And all you got to do is go back and look at history at all the gold town booms. They come in there, they popped up overnight. They went through there, they made billions of dollars, back then millions of dollars, and they make all this money, and then one day they're gone. They're
That's an
just
interesting point to bring up considering Southeast Texas, right?
But I think
yeah.
it's
Um,
also important to understand that again, data centers aren't the progenitor. Like the idea of a dishwasher was sold to Americans or was sold to people as a convenience thing. No, it was created to mitigate so you could spend more time being productive.
right.
You
Well,
know,
that's what all of
we
it
are
is,
so
right?
consumer driven. We exist in this bubble of comfort and instantaneous gratification. And you're right, it is for these companies. They are going to bleed you dry. But it's been here for such a long time. Amazon, one click, I can have it tomorrow, or I can have it later on today, depending on where you're living. It's really a mentality thing. And I,
Yeah.
again, I think it's that AI has just slid into what was already cultivated and has been sitting here for the longest time.
Oh no, you're exactly right. I mean, the streaming TV, we're, what we're doing right now is AI. You know, it helps. It does a lot of things, but the way they're going about it is wrong.
Oh,
That
sure.
I think that's the point, right? Like, so when we talk about dishwashers and other developments, those things, Americans are, we love some convenience, right?
Yep.
We do. And we will invest in our own convenience. But I think the difference with these data centers is there's not a product that the people are getting. This is literally a collection of data for companies to advertise to you to consume more, which is interesting in an economy where nobody has any buying power anymore. But that's the goal. It's
Well,
not giving
Jen,
you a product, it's
you are the
treating you
product.
like a product.
You
Exactly,
are
you
the
are the product.
product.
That's right.
And
And
we've
the part
been the
about it,
product forever. We are, yeah.
Okay, so we know that we're not really getting any benefits, just corporations are. But in Southeast Texas, we have experienced decades of industrial expansion. Our local governments have had partnerships, corporate partners with these industries. Um, is the influx of data centers any different than what we've already been enduring, and what are the problems there? We know this is an industrial area. We know that industry in our communities is going to have to coexist because it's here. But what are we doing to ensure community return, and why are we bringing in more data centers if we haven't figured out how to do that yet?
Let me ask you a question. All the industries that you already have, are they regulated?
Well, not
no,
to a
no,
degree, but not like they used to be,
no,
Okay,
right?
they're not
that's what I'm
regulated.
saying.
They're not
They
regulated.
they regulated them, and then Abbott's reduced the regulations to make it where they can come in and bring more in, and that's what I'm saying. If they're regulated, then they're going to be more beneficial. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having jobs. I mean, that's
No,
great to bring them in here, and everybody wants to make money and all. But I would rather see the land in Southeast Texas, especially when I drive around into some of those counties. I'd rather it be full of cannabis or hemp or something, instead of
Right.
a data center. I'm
Diversify
sorry.
the industry and repair the soil.
Yeah,
But
let's
I
let
think to what you
let
said about jobs, we all want jobs. We all
yeah.
want jobs to be here. And that's always the promise.
Well,
But that's not been the reality.
I took a class years ago in college, which I don't have much college guys, but I took some classes, and there's a formula. I can't, and there's actually a name for it, and I can't remember the name. I'm sorry, but they take a formula and they say, okay, we're going to put this nuclear power plant, and it's going to give 1,000 people a year cancer, and they're going to die. Okay, but it's going to make billions and billions of dollars. So at that time, the life was worth $650,000, and so they have a formula, they put it together, they say, listen, if 1,000 people die per year, we're making enough money to cover it. Let's put the power plant in place, and
Yeah,
that's
we've
the way.
lost we've lost the difference between
but the
value
fact of
and
the matter is,
cost.
they never do cover it because they won't
Right.
even admit on the very thing that you said, Bobby, that they are harming people. Here in
Yes,
Southeast Texas, I've worked in the petrochem industry 38 years for the second largest refinery in the country, right there in Beaumont, ExxonMobil, and I live a mere quarter mile or less in that direction, right there, from the largest refinery in the country. And what I've seen these companies do, is that they sell our elected officials a wooden nickel. I'll
Yeah.
be very kind. They make these promises about jobs and these opportunities, but I was watching on the news just at 6 o'clock where unemployment in Southeast Texas, Beaumont Port Arthur, is almost 5.5%.
Wow.
And then
And we
I'm
have
also
the
looking at
highest concentration of industry here.
the
We
county
should
judge
never have a
here,
low
Jeff Bannock,
unemployment
loves to
rate.
say that we have over $80 billion of industrial development. How do you have all of that industrial development and have the highest unemployment in the state as we did in the fourth quarter of last year? So there's
somebody's making money.
well, the problem is
But
that
it
our
ain't
elected
us.
officials have been bought into the lie that industry has told them about all these
Right.
benefits without doing a true cost benefit analysis. I
Right.
like to say that these things are qualifiable and quantifiable. We can quantify what that looks like, economic development speaking, and we can qualify it by the amount of money that is coming into the tax revenues of the counties and the cities as well as the working people who work in those communities. And one of the distressing things I heard today talked about with tax abatement with the city of Beaumont is that one person made mention of the fact of this 9 county region. And for those of you who've been around long as me, you remember when all of that started. They said that the local hiring was a 9 county region. But tell me, those other counties, those other 8 counties that aren't Jefferson, are elected officials in Jefferson County elected and voted on by those other 8?
Nope.
Are they, do they have an allegiance to create jobs and opportunities for them as opposed to us?
Right.
They're
So I
actually
look at it,
sacrificing us for
well, they
them.
are. They are. So to say that we want to consider this is basically telling me that you, as an elected official, and I'm not going to say the lady's name, but to say that you, as an elected official, are placing their welfare ahead of the people that elected you is just inconceivable in my mind.
Mhm.
That you have an obligation to protect their lives, their health, and their tax base, everything they hold dear, because that's what they elected you to do. But yet you're taking into consideration this region as being local. But what skin did they have in the game? So we have to get back to basics of seeing what the actual cost benefit ratio is to us in order to justify continuing tax abatement and continuing incentives for not only oil and gas, but data centers and the like.
So what information should local governments require before even considering entering into these agreements? What are some questions they should be asking?
Well, to me, first thing they got to ask, they've got to understand what it is they're dealing with. I don't think most of them even have a clue. They haven't worked in those industries, they haven't been a part of them, and they simply take what these people tell them, the CEOs or the public affairs people that come to them with their pitch. They take it. I look at it, and having seen it from both sides, it's like the voice of God. These are people are seen as authority figures and people of stature, and you're going to be inclined to believe them as opposed to believe some John Beard or someone else, an old
Mhm.
refinery worker who's really been in the industry, studied this, and knows and understands it. And they don't ask enough questions. They simply take what they're told. And then, once again, we as a people in our communities don't engage ourselves with them enough so that we keep them honest, that we keep them doing the job we elected them to do. That's our most important role, not to just go to the polls at election time, but it's the in between times to make sure that they're doing the job and that we're staying on top of them to make sure they do the job, or else we remove them from office. So it's
Right.
important for them to ask those questions, to look at the cost benefit ratio, to actually see, do tax abatement incentives, are they really even necessary? I've had people in the industry tell me that's just icing on the cake. We don't really need it, but if we can get it, it makes us look good. Our CEO looks good. Somebody's going to get a bonus and a nice little raise at the end of the year. So
I brought
we're
that.
giving away, and I'm going to say this, and the study hasn't come out yet, guys, but my organization commissioned a study earlier this year, and just one of these companies alone, one of the LNGs located just outside of Port Arthur going towards Sabine, over the 10-year period, the city of Port Arthur will have abated or basically allowed them to keep or given back to them by not letting them pay the taxes almost $1 billion, $960 million over 10 years. Yes, we have the statistic, and this is information we got from them through Freedom of Information requests, like you talk about, Bobby. All of this is their information on the county and the city level that they're giving away that kind of money in a community that has high unemployment, that's not creating jobs for its own people, and that has all of these problems as they're getting into the budget cycle now for the next fiscal year coming up October 1st. You're going to hear a lot of talk about, well, we can't do this because we don't have money. We don't have money here, but you can give away $96 million a year over 10
Well,
years.
that's
Yeah.
just on tax abatement. What about the subsidies they give them back too?
Oh,
That's
that's
Yes.
crazy.
it's every time they need money for something they want, they have it.
All
Whenever
right.
we need something, we don't get it.
That's
Right.
why I say these really aren't even private companies anymore.
No,
So the
they're public
citizens united
assets.
even apply because they are funded, their risk, their um, struggles, all of it, it's funded by us.
Yeah,
They're public entities. They are a public good now, as far as I'm concerned.
right.
We should
Especially when at
absolutely
the
be
end.
regulating.
But see, here's the crazy thing about these data centers. Just because you prop one up doesn't mean it's going to be successful. You know, they've
Right.
had problems with OpenAI. I use ChatGPT. It's the assistant I wish I always had. But
Mm-hmm.
OpenAI just recently had a major security problem
Right.
where the algorithm shut the people out and then created a back door to to mitigate their control over itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the first time.
Mm-mm.
No.
There was AI who convinced this poor kid to kill himself.
They made a movie about this.
Yes, they
Well,
have.
and,
It's
and adding to
Terminator.
what you and Freddie, adding to what you said, they found out that that one case they discovered with OpenAI was not the only one. There was
Right.
a
Right.
couple of other cases, 4 cases, one of which that they did significant damage to this other company, but they caught it in time before it
Right.
spread. But who knows what has happened that they haven't heard? Now, here's a question I got for everybody: what exactly is artificial intelligence?
So yeah,
Artificial
that's the big question, right? That
intelligence.
is
Yes,
it's an amalgamation of human knowledge at this
Yes.
point.
right.
It does not
And
think for itself.
you said that one crucial word, human knowledge, with
Right.
all the frailties, biases,
Right.
and inherent biases that come with it. There's a term I
Yep.
wrote down about that because the computers and the intelligence is no greater than who programs it and what they program into
Right.
it. I
Right.
saw
It
you
should.
react on
It
the
is.
Star Trek reference, and that's the same thing that happened with
My
Beecher.
man. I love Star
Beecher was
Trek.
the
You are
same way,
talking my
man. It was,
language.
Beecher wanted to merge with the creator.
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
why it did all of what it did. What
Yeah.
we input into these machines is the essence of who we are as
Who
human
we are.
beings.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, you're going to have some that are going to be wonderful, and you're going to have some that may be malevolent, who
And
don't care
everything in
about
between.
And everything in between, right?
and
Yes.
everything in
Everything in
between.
Yes.
between.
Well,
But
And
you know,
that's
part,
it's a tool. It's a tool, right?
it is a
So
tool.
that's
Right.
why I
It
say
is a
I'm
tool.
not anti
Yeah.
AI, right? I find it useful. But we see the same argument that we saw with straws and water conservation. It's up to you, the
Right.
individual, not these companies, to do
Right.
better. But you could use AI every single day, and you are not going to touch the amount of damage and
No.
impact that one of these companies has.
No.
If
well,
we regulate the companies, then
Right.
we can worry less about regulating the people.
But see, you
I,
right.
have a problem with that, and this goes back. The the our country was founded on this concept when asked Benjamin Franklin, "What kind of government did you give us?" And he replied, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it." That is predicated on the intelligence, not God, not religiosity, not economics, not any other factor other than the intelligence of the population. And right now they're being manipulated by Bezos and by Zuckerberg and by Musk to laud them like gods
yeah,
and to create this oligarchy because they're wealthy that God must have blessed them into this kind of wealth. Ergo, here, take my rights away from me. And they will argue against their own self interest in the interest of billionaires. And it's mind boggling to me. And that is one of the things that I am terrified that we have gone beyond the reach of, is that we have abdicated our personal responsibility and just, we've given away our freedom.
that
We've
is
given away our liberty.
yes.
Freddie,
I think that when I
can I
was
give you some
younger,
hope?
Oh, yeah, because I'm
Just
running
right
low
quick,
on it.
Jen. Can I give you some hope? I've got
Sure.
yes,
a couple of words to just say. Really, two. French Revolution.
Yes, 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 sir. That was playing in my head today. This administration right now wants to take us back to 17 or to 1960. They're going to overshoot us into 1790.
yes,
And it's when
Yeah.
these people get so big-headed. Just because you're out of touch does not mean that you're out of reach.
yeah.
And history, you better understand it. You better know it. And that's the dread that I feel. Because the age of enlightenment in the United States, when it crossed that border, when it crossed that Atlantic Ocean, became the age of terror.
Yeah.
And that is what I am fearful over. And I think about that every day. But you're absolutely right.
One
So
of the
I to
billionaire
that
class
same
told
end,
a friend, told a friend that he said, I tell my fellow billionaires all the time, what I fear most is the pitchforks.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy, his name is Mark Cuban, was the one who wrote that article. He said, "Beware." He said the pitchforks are coming. And what's
Yeah.
ironic about it is they talk about the violence of the left. It's not going to come out of the left. You have militarized and radicalized the right. They're angry, they're armed, and once they realize that you're retarded behind, sold them down the river, there isn't a country in the world that can stop them from coming.
Well, I mean, we
Nope.
saw that, right? We see the way the left protests and
Yeah,
speaks back, and it's looks like family days, and people are in costumes, and you're
yeah,
dressed up. It doesn't get violent until the government comes in.
right?
But when the right gets mad, we get January 6th.
Yeah,
So yes, it's very different. But what I wanted to mention a minute ago, we were talking about the time frames, right? One of the things I think a lot about is what does great again mean? What time period are we trying to get back to? Where is again? And I feel like we have explored all these different. We've looked at the Dust Bowl. We've tried
yeah,
to get back to before the Civil Rights Act. We've gone to all these dark places. The witch trials. We don't want women
sure,
talking or having opinions, right? Like
right?
we have all these weird spaces. And then today, with the Fauci thing yesterday, I'm like, oh, we're going all the way back to Galileo. You're a
Yeah,
heretic if you study science. Like
yeah,
we've lost the plot. And when I was younger, I really bought into the myth that Americans were made of sterner stuff. And watching people give up their rights for some sort of belief in safety that's not coming is crazy to me. I'm with y'all on
Dietrich
that. It's
Dietrich
crazy to me.
Bonhoeffer was a theologian, and he was a brilliant man. He was a pacifist. He was a Lutheran theologian who ended up in the plot to bomb Adolf Hitler. There's a great book out by him, or not by him, but about him called Strange Glory. But before the Nazi regime executed him, he wrote in his personal effects about arguing with stupidity. And he warned against it because there's no cure. There
Right.
is no segue. There's no common belief system. And it's not that they lack intelligence. It's that the bombastic slogans
Oh,
Rose up.
froze up. You froze, Freddie.
favor for.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, sorry.
You're okay.
Go
Bombastic
back. Go
Anyway,
back
religions.
two sentences.
Bombastic religions.
so the bombastic personalities, the bombastic slogans, cause them to lay down their own intelligence.
Hmm.
And that's what we're fighting with. It's not that they're
Yes.
dumb. They do not lack the ability to learn. Like Reagan used to say, they just know a bunch of stuff that isn't true.
Right.
It's you've laid down. He's allowed you have he has cucked your ability to think and reason for yourself. And going back to what Mr. Bobby said, they could never get enough wealth. Donald Trump has had wealth and prestige and power and women and children all of his life, and he cannot be satisfied.
Right.
And
Right.
that is the inherent problem. There should be no such thing as a billionaire. Period.
Right. I don't think you can ethically become one.
No. No.
Yeah.
I have a needle.
Okay. To that end, let's talk about this. So there's all this industry that comes to Southeast Texas. Data centers are coming in Texas. Texas is open for business, Abbott likes to say. But when they come and all our taxes are rerouted from services and protections for us to services and protections for them, who then is going to pay for the strain in our road systems, the infrastructure, the substations, the water systems and increases that have to come, the all the other infrastructure support needed for these facilities? Who's going to foot that bill?
The people.
Good question. People won't have money because people won't have jobs and won't have work.
Well,
Right.
That's Musk's solution. He's already talked about how you're going to work like doing a garden. You're just going to work for fun because AI is going to cover everything.
But he hasn't told us who's going to pay either.
Well,
Right.
they're going to generate cryptocurrency and electric currency and just move it around. I don't know.
I don't know.
But
That
it-
sounds an awful lot like
Nobody knows.
communism.
That's the problem.
So
Company
Freddie was
towns.
right,
It's
and Freddie was
company
right. They
towns must
suspended the
want
ability to play.
company towns,
Yes,
yeah,
it does.
which is,
Gilded Age.
yeah,
That
I
is
mean,
Astor and Ford, and yeah, that's how they operated.
you
And the
get
minute you
fed in
drop
exchange
dead,
for your work, you get a
it,
roof in exchange for your
it,
work.
I may be wrong, but isn't that how his father was in the diamond mines in Africa
Yes,
or something? Yeah.
yes, yeah.
that's
But
how that's where
you
he
want,
got
it's
his
like,
wealth.
it's modern day slavery essentially, but
Absolutely, is what
it's
it is.
company towns. Yeah.
It's a
So
breath away from it. It is a hair away from slavery. Chattel
right,
slavery is chattel slavery.
that's
That
different.
we
I'm
will
not talking
never
about
get
chattel
close to that.
slavery yet.
But that is a breath away. The horrific treatment of people. Pure capitalism is just as evil, and quote me, as pure communism.
Yes.
It is evil. It there is no check on it. You have no incentive to save anybody's life. A body would drop on the line, they would throw it out the door and grab the next person waiting in line. That
Anything
is
in the
evil.
extreme, anything in the extreme. And so we see a
Yes.
lot of that. But if you go extreme communism or you go
Or
extreme
extreme
capitalism,
capitalism.
fascism, like
The
we are
results
now,
are the
what you
same.
end up with is totalitarianism
Yep.
for everybody.
What is the
That's what
old
it
saying?
is.
It doesn't matter what boot is on your neck when you're choking.
Right.
Hmm.
Right. Right.
So
So
That's a
okay,
good
so I
analogy.
think that's an interesting what are some policies and safeguards that you think we could demand of local leadership to put us in a better position with all this industry? What are some things we should be asking them to do?
Transparency is the number one thing.
Yeah,
No
Um,
there's no data
NDAs.
available, accessible data. There's
yeah,
nothing.
we need to be accessible. We need to have public knowledge. I mean, like I said, I'm not going to lie. I didn't even hear of these data centers until I got into office. I was worried about the water. I didn't know what was going on with the water, and then I found out that it's because of data centers. It's so when I go to these commissioner meetings and stuff, they just I got one commissioner court meeting, and they told us that like the Friday before is on Monday or something. That gave them enough days to get it going, so they put it in the paper like Friday night. So
yeah,
they're obviously hiding this stuff, and if it was a great thing, they would let everybody know about it. They put it on the
exactly,
news.
Right. That's right.
Right.
exactly.
You
And
got to
then,
have
but see,
openness and
there's a larger
transparency in your
question
government.
that we have to ask. It's one thing holding our officials accountable. What are we going to do to hold ourselves accountable to stop breaking the desire, the need,
Yes.
the the instant gratification crap? Because yeah, take them out, regulate the hell out of them. But man, you better go after Amazon warehouse. How
Hmm.
about you curb shopping at Walmart? I know it's convenient as hell, but man, look into these companies. Look at their business practices. People have begged, please buy local. As soon as Sam Walton died, the minute that man died, his business ethic died with him. And his
Right.
rotten ass kids took that company and did something to it their father never intended.
Right.
Look at where you're buying stuff. Who do they support?
Well,
What are they doing?
I
But
think that
also that goes back to Citizens United, where we let them.
Absolutely.
The state and our leadership should let them do it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But our
But that's in
state and
large
our
part because we
leadership,
didn't do our job.
No,
that's
you're
it.
exactly
Our
right.
state and our
We
leadership,
shrank back.
uh-huh,
If,
they will
if I would have
continue
got
to do
involved
what
20
we
years
allow
ago,
them to do. That's
yes,
the
I'm saying,
point.
yeah. I mean, I didn't get involved in politics until November. And
Right.
I've been comfortable living a good life and just letting everything go. And then I just woke up one day and I had enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bobby, don't feel bad. Everybody has a come to Jesus moment. You just had
Yeah.
yours
So,
a little later than most, but
Yeah.
at some
We
point
well,
we
like
all
I said,
wake
I
up at
it
got,
comes
different
to
times. The
everybody.
important
yeah,
thing is to be awake.
my son, he's out of the Army. He's a veteran from the Army and the National Guard, and he can't afford rent.
Right.
He can't afford groceries, can't afford his car insurance.
Buddy,
I'm like,
preach.
this ain't right. When I was his age, I already had a house and three or four new cars and a wife and kids.
Well,
It's
and
it's crazy.
we keep hearing that it's on us, right? It's on us to use less AI. It's on us to use paper straws. It's on us to work what, a third or fourth job to
Yeah.
make ends meet. At some point, we have to stop repeating this rhetoric
Right.
because it feels secure and start acknowledging that this level of dysfunction in our country is
Isn't
a
working.
result of bad policy
Yeah.
decisions.
Yeah.
And none of that is permanent. You all have the power to speak to your elected officials, to email them, to ask them questions. You all have the power to read. There is, speaking of AI, we all have a computer in our pocket. You
Yeah.
have more information available to you now than
Yeah.
you ever have in history. We can know who we're voting for, what they stand for, what their history says. We don't have to go into things blind.
Right.
And so I think as Americans, we have to start standing up and taking some accountability
Right.
for what we've let our government and by extension our country become.
You
Amen.
got to get that word out to everybody now.
Amen.
Yes,
That
yes.
was a hell of a closing statement, boss.
Well, it's about an hour, so I guess we can start tying up.
Right?
Does anybody have anything else they feel like we really need to cover that we didn't get a chance to talk about in this regard today?
Now, you guys are great.
I think we
Love
did
every bit
great.
of it.
We covered a lot. We covered a lot. So
It
just
was a
as we
pleasure to meet you
close
guys,
in,
Mr. Beard. I'm a huge Trekkie.
Uh,
It's pathological at this point.
I like the Star Trek movies.
I remember watching the very first Star Trek serial. I
Right?
think came on Friday night. I remember that. I've been following that and Lost in Space and
Okay.
Irwin Allen's Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea and all of that business. I'm a
Right?
child of the '60s, so
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm
I
getting ready
love
my
Lost
age,
in
but that's
Space.
all right. I just didn't watch the soap out this morning. I got to take care of that later.
all right. Well, we know that technology is here and it will continue to shape our future. The
Yes.
question isn't whether we embrace innovation, it's whether we do so thoughtfully and focus on responsible growth, which means transparency, accountability, and making sure the benefits of development are shared by the communities that they inhabit.
Yeah.
All right.
We want to make sure that land, water, power, and people who make all of this possible are protected. So if you liked this conversation tonight, if you felt like it challenged you, be sure to follow us, like and subscribe. We'll be here every Thursday night at 8 o'clock live for Let's Talk Impact. I want to thank you again, John Beard, Bobby Tillman, and Frederick Feely for joining us tonight. Everybody have a great night, and I will see y'all next week.
And a progress without responsibility isn't progress.
That is a good
Yes, sir.
closing. Yes.
Have a good night, guys.
Good
Good night,
night.
everybody.
Good night.
Peace. Love you guys. Bye.